Hi there, you're listening. Hi there, you're listening to Unnatural Selection, the show about newsy type stuff and things. My name is George.
My name is Tom.
And my name is Adam.
And with our powers combined, we are Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. Ask me where I was last week, boys.
Well, George, I was going to say, if I didn't know you any better, it sounds like you haven't had much sleep.
I have not had much sleep because I am a new father. Beep, 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 beep.
Is there a soundboard for that?
I've lost the soundboard. There we go. Okay, all right.
Forever.
Okay. So welcome to Earth, Leo, short for Leonardo, Tsipos. Weighing in at 2.9 kilograms in the red corner.
Is that a lot? People always say that with babies. They're like, they were this weight. And I'm like, is that heaps? Like, did you give, did your wife give birth to the elephant man child? Is it huge? Or is that
small to medium is my understanding.
Yeah, he's a small boy. So he's currently quintuple zero sized clothes. So normally an infant is quadruple zero and he's quintuple zero. So he is a bit small. But
these unrealistic body expectations
just
for babies
unrealistic,
getting out of hand.
It's
like
bloody...
zero is not a size. Quintuple fucking minus zero isn't a size.
Bloody, Lizzo. Body shaming these infants. Wasn't there a story about how she was body shaming her dancers?
Lizzo was in some hot water. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I kept up to date with the news. So if I appear slightly crazed, as though I'm in a bit of a fugue state, that's obviously why we've got a newborn child. I've not been sleeping very well. It is true what they say that you don't sleep well as a newborn parent and that they wake constantly for food. But I didn't realize how constantly was, in that it's like up until last night, so for the last 10 days or so, it's been sort of like 2 hours. And I'm like, that sounds good. 2 hours. Like I could do, 4 or 5 nappy changes in a night. Like that's not terrible. I could do that. Until you realize 2 hours is not 2 hours. 2 hours is from the start of the feed. But if the feed takes 45 minutes, that's hourly.
He'll be up again in an hour.
He'll be up again in an hour and 15 minutes. That's not enough to watch a feature-length film, let alone get some sleep. So
my movies need to be shorter. We need more movies.
We need shorter movies.
A tight 70.
No, I agree. I think 90 should be a hard limit on films. None of these 3-hour epics. Yeah, I'm sick of it, Zack Snyder.
Yeah, fucking Hitchcock was wrong. A movie shouldn't be the length of the endurance of the human bladder, but more the length of the endurance of a baby's need for milk.
The length of my attention deficit disorder. So, yeah, I had a child and he's great and he smells, it actually doesn't smell like anything. It's kind of weird. You expect babies
supposed to smell amazing because it's like newborn babies a smell and it's
I don't think it's like a new car smell or anything. No, there's just, it's kind of, they smell like slightly of milk and the poos don't smell yet. That's another thing I learned is that the poos don't start to smell for a while. So I'm not keen for that to come in, obviously, because the no-smelling poops are great so far, but that's the thing.
You got a couple of months before that kicks in. But yeah, so it's good that we're recording here on a Wednesday evening.
What?
Yeah.
What year is it?
No, it is, of course, a Sunday. George managed to keep up in the chat and has been diligently watching the news.
I was out in the garden today, just being assaulted by bees, listening to podcasts. So I'm definitely partially up to date with some of the news, which is fun.
Great.
So we discovered about 14,000 bees hanging out in the backyard. So that was a fun thing to sort out on a Sunday in a sleep deprived state where it's like, you all see these bees as well, right? Mainly just documenting them in case it turns out I'm not sane.
To be fair, I didn't actually see any bees in the videos you posted. I
It's
just
hard to
assumed
show
that there were
bees.
that were there.
Adam, you didn't see the fuck off beehive in the
I saw the picture of the bees, but the picture of the bees could have been taken anywhere, Tom. I don't know if that's a real picture of bees.
It's just doubting everything nowadays. It's bloody AI. Can't trust anything nowadays.
But the phone camera and the Facebook Messenger video doesn't quite give you the resolution.
What if I play Flight of the Bumblebees underneath the video? Will that give you an impression? There was a lot of bees, is my point. Because once you start removing bees get real angry about being moved. And it was like a comic book where a cartoon where they're like trying to show you how many bees there are, and that's like a swarm of bees attacking a person. That's what it was like in my backyard. Yeah, it was fun.
Got to find
your backyard, George. What's special about your locale?
It's got a lot of bees in it.
Set up shop.
Well, I don't know.
I've watched enough bee removing TikToks. You got to find the queen.
You got to find the. That's exactly what they did.
Find the queen.
They found the queen. They lured her out.
Put her in a cage.
Popped her in a cage, and then the other ones basically followed her to their doom.
Morons. Hang on,
Idiots.
wait. Was your guy exterminating the bees?
No, he's taking them. He's like a honey farmer guy, and he's like,
thank God, because George, we need bees. The bees are disappearing.
Yeah.
For realsy, not Doctor Who disappearing, where they went back to their home planet. They actually are disappearing.
I remember that. No, I was conscientious not to get an exterminator because, I understand that there's a bee problem, and this guy makes honey. He's in Blackburn. He was a lovely guy. He came over and removed them for me, and made a little bit of money doing so as well. But I was not prepared in my sleep deprived, newborn fugue state to deal with a hive of angry bees. I was just like, this is definitely an outsourced specialization is for ants, but bees are not for me. That is someone else's job entirely.
If you weren't sleep deprived and in a fugue state, they probably still wouldn't be a specialty
probably,
for you.
I can make a mean lamb tagine, but I cannot handle 14,000 angry bees. Maybe 3.
It's a 2.5.
Not even 3,000. 3 bees. that is my limit. That's where I max out. So, cool story. Anyway, so welcome to Earth, Leo. He's pretty good. And even though you smell like slightly sour milk, you're pretty good. So,
for someone who doesn't just enjoy the smell of just kind of milk generally, if there's just smelling just regular milk. Oh boy,
the cuteness that
the
they definitely
milk smell is not something I look forward to. When
babies are for sure genetically engineered to be cute as fuck.
Oh,
so you don't
otherwise we
drop
just
kick them over the fence.
Oh, little baby, saber-toothed tiger. There you go. Off you go. Nope. You're going to get us killed.
No, they're definitely cute as hell, and it makes it immediate. You look into their eyes and you're like, I will kill for you.
Yeah. It's the hormones, George.
It's the hormones flooding your body. So, he's pretty cute. And I've decided we'll keep him. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I was going to say, what's the return policy on the hospital?
90 days. It's pretty good.
90 days. Holy shit. Yeah, that is good.
Actually, it's a lifetime guarantee. At any point, you can give them away, which is pretty good. That's pretty good insurance.
Yeah, that's good. ACCC must have fought hard for that.
Even Yeti's lifetime warranty is really only 25 years. So it's pretty good.
There's a lot of caveats on that too, isn't there? On Yeti's warranty. Whilst baby, nope. Any condition we accept.
I don't know what a Yeti is, but I'll
the Yeti coolers and they're kind of Eskies or the
Esky.
Yeti. What are they called? The thermos and
just say an Esky.
Okay, but Esky is a brand as well.
So is Yeti.
Yeah.
Esky's a brand.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's just changed my whole perspective. Take up Buddhism.
like Band-Aids. Band-Aid is a brand.
Yeah, or Hoover.
Hoovers and Xerox and all that sort of shit.
If you don't stop talking, I'll put some Glad Wrap over your mouth. So let's go.
Oh.
Glad Wrap is a brand name. I get it. Speaking of brand names, brand names that have been in the discussion, in the discourse this week, Virgin and Qantas and Qatar Airways.
Qantas had a great week.
This
was awesome. This was juicy.
Well, if you're looking at the profit and loss statement, Qantas had an excellent week because they declared a record $2.5 billion profit. Sarah Ferguson asked Qantas CEO, Alan Joyce if he was going to return some of that money that they got from JobSeeker, and he said, So what money? Huh?
What is JobSeeker?
Sorry, I think you're breaking up there.
You're breaking up there, Sarah. This is actually a live interview recorded in person. There's no possible... Sorry, you're breaking up. Can't hit you what you're saying. Oh, Alan.
Yeah, real bad look for, them being like, oh no, we're like losing staff.
Cost of living. We're doing it's so tough in the airline industry.
Tickets are so expensive because we're just not profitable post-COVID and we don't have enough staff and we keep charging so much for flights and cancelling flights and record profits, baby. These two things do not go together, and it looks really fucking shit. But man, their week got even weirder. Yes, because where Qatar is the interesting player, sort of in here. That where Qatar Airways came in was that Qatar wanted to have more flights to Australia internationally. I believe something in the realm of like
21 extra flights a week.
20 extra flights a week, which doesn't sound like a lot.
Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney, which are the gateway airports.
Yeah, and they wanted Qatar wanted more flights into Australia, and the government said nah. They said nah. For national interest reasons. Like, they put it's not in the national interest for us to allow you to have more flights. To which everyone said, you what? What national interest?
What happened was that the Assistant Treasurer, Stephen Jones, I was today years old when I learnt Stephen Jones's name and that he was Assistant Treasurer, but Assistant Treasurer Stephen Jones told the Australian Financial Review on Monday that Qatar was blocked because cheaper fares could be, quote, unsustainable for the existing Australian-based carrier, and the government wanted to ensure Qantas's viability.
Yes, so the implication from there really being like, if Qatar had more flights into Australia, there'd be more competition, which would mean that the local airlines like Qantas and Virgin and everyone would have to lower their prices.
And what we absolutely don't want in a situation with inflated prices is more competition, because that's going to bring prices down, and Qantas is going to be very upset about that.
So upset about that. So Stephen Jones very much said the quiet part quite loud. It was sort of like, we are protecting Qantas's profits by preventing Qatar. Qantas, I believe, admitted, they lobbied the government.
Sure.
Like they were lobbying them, being like, no, don't do this because it'll be bad for, gobs and joth in Australia, like Australian jobs, like flights from overseas should be done in Australia.
Well, the quote was, Qantas has lobbied the government to not allow Qatar to add more flights, saying it would, quote, distort, unquote, the market. So by saying distort the market, are they saying introduce an element of competition and therefore all of these free market guys that are like constantly jacking off Ayn Rand on the, there's free market, love the free market, such a good free market. We'll take the money, socialism on the way down. When we need the help, we'll take it from the government. Thank you very much. And when profits are up, Ayn Rand's a hero. Everything's great. Free market capitalism all the way, baby. Yeah. Profiteering on the way up, socialism on the way down. That's really what it seems like. Distort the market. No, it's not distorting the market. That is the market operating as intended. That's what happens when you have a free market, is that other players can come into the space and compete, and that's how the consumer, allegedly, gets the best results, right, is by having different people competing for their business. More capacity comes online. This is the same thing we're talking about with the Australian housing market, right? The government's always going, we just need to add more supply. There's nothing we can do about constraining demand or changing the investment landscape to prevent people from dumping hundreds of billions of dollars into the sector every year. What we need to do is create more supply. Well, here's Qatar Airways offering more supply, and at a time where demand is sky high for flights around Australia, Qantas is charging sky high rates for these flights. And then the Australian government goes, nah. We're good.
The the stats are at the moment. So the Virgin boss weighed in earlier in the week, which is probably started about when it sort of started to make headlines. And her point is that the airfares, as you just said, are still abnormally high. So airfares are about, according to the Virgin CEO, they're about 50% higher today than they were pre-COVID. And the statistics say 2/3 of the seats that were flying in and out of Australia pre-COVID are back, but there are still 1/3 of those seats are still not on the table in terms of so there's
fewer seats and we're going to charge more for prices. Them. So
exactly.
If we're looking at fighting inflation, wouldn't you as the government be a little bit interested in introducing some additional competition into the market to lower those prices, help to ease that those inflationary pressures on the economy, right?
Interestingly, the government commissioned a competition report or some sort of, inquiry or whatever.
He commissioned an inquiry and a report.
There was a report.
Strap up, boys. Strap in. We got an inquiry.
The airline industry was excluded from that report.
Oh, lucky. Wasn't that lucky?
That was handed down, or at least
is the airline industry excluded from the inflation figures? No.
So Virgin's obviously not very happy with it.
In all fairness, Virgin has a co-sharing agreement with Qatar. Okay, so they've got a fiscal interest in making sure that Qatar has access to those routes.
Isn't it Emirates or is it Qatar?
I'm pretty sure it was Qatar.
Well, Qatar's the one who wants the extra routes, but I don't know about Virgin's relationship. Sort of there.
Let me just have a look. Maybe it's Qantas and Emirates I'm thinking of.
But the Virgin boss.
Yeah, it's Virgin and Qatar, I'm pretty sure. We can double check that.
Yeah.
But the Virgin boss did essentially say, though, that Qatar getting those extra 21 flights a week would force them to be dropping prices. So acknowledging that would be the case. So I feel like that's the important part of the Virgin person's comment is they're like, they're acknowledging it. It's not just us saying that's how economies work.
Granted,
we'd have to.
The Virgin boss, Jane Herdlicker, I think that's how you pronounce that. She's got a vested interest, right? And the Virgin strategy is very different from Qantas's strategy as far as I can tell. Qantas' strategy is definitely the premium carrier, right? You pay more, you get a good service, although that whole underlying premise has been kind of questionable for the last couple of years. But Virgin, they're running on more of a volume model. So they don't care if prices come down, really, because their margins are not as big, don't have as big of an impact on their bottom line. They're just wanting to run volume, right? Run as many flights as possible and get money that way. Whereas Qantas, obviously much more of a focus on the margins, running fewer flights, getting more dollars for those flights. So it is to her advantage to have this narrative out there. But at the same time, it's like first principles reasoning completely stands to reason. If you have more flights, you're not going to be able to charge as much for those flights. Ergo, the prices come down. That just makes sense to me, right?
Have you guys seen the latest Qantas ad?
Is this the one where the kid flies home in business class to go see come for his mum's birthday?
I'll set the scene.
Meetup.
Just woefully out of touch.
Set the scene for the listener. If you haven't seen it, you can Google it. But basically, a young Caucasian Australian man is living in Japan, living his best life. He's video phoning his mum. His mum's having to sell the house. And he gets all sad because his childhood home's been sold out from under him. It's so devastating.
My inheritance.
But they're like smash cut to him riding around Japan on a bicycle with his friends. So he's perfectly happy. He's fine. It's okay.
Who's paying for him to be in Japan? Japan's a very expensive place to be. It's undoubtedly mum and dad, right?
Not cheap. Anyway, it turns out it's his mum's birthday, and he's like, he can't come back, but his brother buys him a ticket, and his
brother,
back.
Elon Musk, buys him a ticket on a business class flight from Japan to Australia.
Smash cut to him sleeping on the way home.
You're sleeping horizontally, as you do on flights.
Yes, as we all do. And then he rocks up at his mum's birthday on the banks of some outback river system somewhere in Australia.
Just classic, relatable Australian content, right?
Yeah, and surprises his mum, which is all very nice.
You want to know the weird thing about that ad?
What?
Sorry, because my partner covered that ad. She works for the ABC in Gruen and stuff. That they were real people. Like, that was the real family. Like, they weren't actors.
That's even weirder. What?
That's a real scenario, except it was heavily filmed. So, that's why they were kind of going with the thing of, like, that's the genuine reaction from the mum to see the son that lives over in Japan. Except there's a fucking camera crew at your birthday. You know something's up.
Something's up.
What?
Like,
so it's real. Like, I guess you could say Qantas could always turn around and say, "Oh, well, it's a real story." So that we're actually
a real story in the sense
just a
of,
testimonial
like,
from one of our
people,
happy customers.
Yeah, all those people are family. He lives overseas.
Now it makes sense that he got a business class flight. He probably got it comped because he's an influencer now. Now he's doing a fucking commercial for them.
Like, it's the weirdest ad. It's like, you're saying, like, oh, this is a real story. Except, well, no, she had to know something was fucking going down. There's a camera crew, and they're getting it from, like, 8 different angles.
I don't.
Maybe
That's so that makes it even much stranger than it already was.
Like, it's bananas. So
Qantas.
very strange.
Qantas traditionally do have ads which sort of do pull at the heartstrings, make you go, oh. But that one, I was like, that's a weird sidestep. Yeah, the choir.
Choir at Uluru.
Fucking
right
salute.
Sorry, the listeners can't hear me, like, looking shocked. Adam felt so touched by the choir traveling around the world.
If you love your country, then it makes you feel all warm inside.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying.
If you love your country, you want to see a choir in other countries.
Yes. All of the landmarks.
So
the comments from Stephen Jones, though, of, like, from the assistant treasurer saying, like, no, we'd have distorted the market and blah, blah, blah. We're totally protecting Qantas's interests. Right. He's walked that back, being like, no, you misconstrued what I said.
By reading the words as they were written.
His response was, I made the completely uncontroversial statement that the Australian government wants to ensure our airline industry is viable and competitive, that it's delivering good services to customers. A viable airline industry requires a profitable airline industry.
Which is fine, but that's not what you said.
Yes.
Those are different words that you've now said. That's fine, but the words you said were, quote, cheaper fares would be, quote, unsustainable for the existing Australian-based carrier, unquote. Okay, like, that's the whole, you're clearly running protection for Qantas. And that's fine, I guess, if Qantas was a publicly owned entity, right? Like, if the national airline was of strategic importance and it's important to have this Australian-based industry and Australia owns it, that's fine. But you can't run a protection racket for a private company. Like, it's fine. If we want to give them a bailout over COVID for hundreds of millions of dollars to keep them out of water, that's fine. If that's the strategy, that's fine. How much of Qantas do we own now?
51%.
How much, no, not do Australian shareholders own. How much do we, the Australian people, how much does the government own of Qantas now that we've bailed them out to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars? Okay, I'm fine with us doing it because there is a strategic interest in us protecting the industry and keeping it here and keeping it alive. But we as the government, or we as the Australian taxpayers, now have unprecedented leverage to be able to reform these systems by giving this money. So if you want the money on your way down, that's great. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to get rid of all these bullshit shell corporations. You're going to pay a fair and equitable wage to each one of the various groups that work within your company. Like, here's the money. But here's a bunch of strings that come attached with it. You don't get to just cash the checks and create moral hazard on the way down. And then when you've got a $2.5 billion profit, go, cheers, cunts, thanks for the money, see ya. We're going to do a bunch of stock buybacks and make ourselves even richer. Yeah. The Australian public not only doesn't get its own money back, and he's like, oh, well, we pay lots of corporate taxes. And Sarah Ferguson was like, in the interview, was like, yeah, because you have to. Yeah. What do you want, a fucking cookie?
You want a medal?
You're supposed to, you dumb motherfucker. You have to pay corporate taxes if you make corporate profits. That's how it works. You're not doing us a favor, mate. Thank you.
So by law,
Leo's sleeping soundly right now.
Yeah,
we got a couple of doors between me and Leo. It's okay.
by law, Qantas has to be 51% Australian owned, but it doesn't necessarily say whether that's
Australian shareholders.
Shares owned.
Not 51% owned by the Australian government. Which is fine. We do this all the time with corporate welfare, especially during COVID. People are handing money out hand over fist, which is fine if you want to keep. It was a strange and weird and scary time. I understand we had to do it.
Unprecedented
times. I think you're the first one to coin that, Tom. We should trademark that. But you need to then demand something, is what I'm saying. It's like you can't have it both ways. You can't have it where it's like free market capitalism, everything's all good. We owe nothing to the Australian people, and then come running with your hands out as soon as shit looks bad and go, please help us, gimme. Because there's a term for that. It's called crony capitalism, right? If you're relying not on the strength of your business model to create value for your customers, and that's how you stay profitable. If you're using the strength of your political connections in order to create the term in the literature is a Chinese wall, but I think for cultural reasons we don't use that anymore. If you're trying to create a moat around your industry to protect it, protectionism, right? Using your political connections, that is not a free market capitalist system. That is crony capitalism. So the definition, crony capitalism, sometimes called cronyism, is an economic system in which businesses thrive not as a result of free enterprise, but rather as a return on money amassed through collusion between a business class and the political class. And I would argue that's exactly what's been happening with Qantas and the government. And not just Labor, but Labor and Liberal have had the same relationship with Qantas going back for decades now. So if you're gonna cash the checks, Qantas, then you need to start doing things in a more equitable way. Otherwise it's crony capitalism. We're just protecting.
It's like when your parents pay for anything at your wedding.
Then you don't get to say. Then you have to invite Uncle Dave and Auntie Cheryl because I just gave you 15 grand. So I decide who comes to this fucking wedding.
I feel personally attacked by that statement. So we'll just move on from that very quietly. It's all good. On that note, crony capitalism, complicating Qantas's hard week. On Thursday morning, the competition regulator announced, the ACCC, announced it was taking Qantas to the Federal Court of Australia.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that they are alleging that they advertised and sold tickets for thousands of flights that they had already cancelled but not removed from sale.
Oh, man.
Which I'm not a lawyer, but isn't that not legal to do? To sell?
Doesn't sound legal.
This is not legal advice, but that feels a little bit squishy in my tummy, legal-wise. To sell things that don't exist sounds like fraud.
Yeah, if it is legal, it shouldn't be.
Yeah, exactly.
My argument. And
on top of that,
sorry, go ahead.
There you go. I was just going to say that on top of that, they then didn't tell people that their flights were cancelled.
Yeah, that was the timeline of this. I thought it was bananas because I thought, oh, fuck, is this like a website issue of a flight gets cancelled, but the page to purchase it's still up and there's a transition time of maybe a flight's cancelled in the morning, but oh, crap, something fucked up and we're still selling tickets to that flight by lunchtime. No. That's not what happened at all. No. There's a timeline in here. For example, they had one where a flight was scheduled to go from Melbourne to Los Angeles on May 6th. On April 28th, they cancelled the flight. They didn't remove the flight from sale until May 2.
Come on, dude.
So that's 5 days.
That's so long.
And then they did not inform the existing ticket holders that they cancelled the flight until May 4th. So that's 2 days before the scheduled flight. But it got even crazier. There was one that was on June 4th. There was a flight meant to leave. They cancelled it on February 8th. All right. Decided months in advance to cancel it. I guess, okay. Giving people enough time to make other plans. Oh, wait. They didn't remove it from sale until March 27. So that's nearly 6 to 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell people that it was cancelled until March 28th.
It boggles the mind, doesn't it?
That's nearly 2 months. 2 months of selling tickets to a flight that didn't exist.
Hey guys, I'm starting up an airline. Okay, it's called Speedy Pete's Budget Airline, and I'm selling flights that are definitely taking off tomorrow.
Yeah, see, George, it's funny because I remember at my job when I worked in like a retail environment, and we had one of our pep talks. Like in the morning from the manager, like the morning meeting or whatever. I think they were talking about just like inspirational kind of crap, and they referenced I think Richard Branson, so the Virgin founder, whatever.
Yeah.
Talking about something, and he pointed out though that in the clip that he showed us from some puff piece interview with Richard Branson, where he says something like, Richard Branson says like, any idiot can buy a plane. What makes Virgin work is, and he rattled off like customer first and all that kind of crap. And that was the lesson we were supposed to take away from it. And the manager said that. He was like, I think it's funny that he says any idiot can buy a plane. Because like, no, he's a billionaire. Not any idiot can buy a plane. But the customer service thing's important, and that's where we went on. But I'm starting to think, no, any idiot can buy a plane. Let's start an airline. We don't even have to run the flight.
So funny story. I don't know if this is true, but the legend, the NBA legend of how dig of how Richard Branson allegedly started Virgin was they're on a flight to somewhere and
Virgin didn't exist yet.
It was cancelled, and he basically got everyone that was on the cancelled flight with him and was like, what if we just charter a plane and we'll all just split it like 30 ways? And I guess people were like, yeah, let's do that. And he's like, you know what I should do? I should start an airline. And he was like renowned, like he was meant to be the savviest business person in the world because he negotiated these agreements to lease the planes where he could give them back if he didn't need them. And for some reason, like fucking Boeing agreed to that or whatever. It's just like, oh my God, he was incredible at business. Like, and that's the legend. I don't know how much of that is true. I have not fact checked any of that.
Can you imagine that? Like they get to the other end after that flight and they're just like, sorry, we don't split airfares. So then it's like
when you get to a cafe.
Right, so I got to charge it on my thing, and then you've got to deal with giving out your feeds to like
when you do brunch on a Sunday and the cafe doesn't split.
And just to be like, look, you were up the front in first class and had a couple mimosas. I was in like economy way down the back.
Bro,
I think it's not fair that we split this 30 ways.
That's not fair.
They all have to argue about it. Oh man,
you got to ask the airline for a receipt, guys. That's the key.
That's the key, and then you can break it down. And
100%.
Yeah. And that's back in the days before OSCO existed as well.
Do a pay ID after the fact.
Yeah.
But so Qantas had a really rough week. The ACCC also said that last year, so 2022 alone, they received 1,300 complaints about Qantas cancellations, accounting for half of all the complaints that they've received.
Yeah, so the most complained about company in Australia.
Yeah, amazing.
It was in the news at the time. Like around, there were, and this is early 2022. So between May and July 22, there were, I mean, not just Qantas as well, but other airlines, although Qantas and Jetstar were sort of, I think, the worst at that particular point in time.
And just earlier this year, I had a trip on Virgin that cancelled several different flights and rearranged shit. So they're all cooked right now.
I'm not saying that there haven't been real challenges faced by airlines during COVID. There obviously have.
Oh, 100%.
But I think there is... someone maybe more ethical than Alan Joyce might see the merit in redirecting some of that $2.5 billion profit back into
George.
Maybe like first of all refunding the $570 million that of worth of travel credits that they have. Maybe start there, and then maybe redirecting further some of that money back to the people that helped Qantas keep operating during a time of incredible difficulty, make their lives a little bit easier. Rather than sort of firing them en masse and then hiring them back when it was convenient. And like, I feel as though Qantas as a company is just a company that has no moral integrity left. Like it really is just like a completely empty vessel of neoliberal, like profit first at the expense of anything and everyone. And it's like, why are we bending over backwards so hard to accommodate a company that clearly gives no fucks about us? I don't know. They clearly have a lot of political influence. That's why. But I find it frustrating. If you have any like qualms about this whole Qantas thing, ask yourself if you've been on a Qantas flight in recent times: is the service better? Is it better or worse? I'd say it's worse. Is the price higher or lower? It's higher. Are there other options that are not being allowed into the market? Yes. It's like we're literally defining what it means to be a protected crony capitalist company. Like it's it's just broken.
Don't worry, George, because they did decide to remove the expiry on $570 million worth of flight credits after this announcement came out.
But why is there an expiry on those credits? You know, like
they're also offering a refund for certain people as well. So,
cheers! 5 years later, now that your money's worth nothing because of inflation.
So there are certain refunds. So airline says customers with COVID credits can now request a cash refund, while Jetstar customers can use their COVID vouchers for flights indefinitely. And in terms of the government, I did read at the end of this article somewhere, or maybe the other article, but while they weren't in the competition review, there will be an airline green paper released later this year.
Oh, I can't wait to fucking completely ignore that.
Yeah, because it's literally on green paper. That's nice. What they do. Oh. Yeah,
just one page.
If it's a vital industry and we have to have it and we have to keep it, and if it's of vital importance, let's nationalize it. Let Australia, like we're already paying for it. We're already paying out the ass for it. If we're going to pay for it, we may as well own something. You know, like that's how it used to work with all of these businesses. The State Electricity, Commission was run by the government. Combank was owned and run by the government. Qantas, I'm pretty sure, was owned and run by the government back in the day. It was, so if we're going to intervene, then we should have an ownership stake. Or it's like free market capitalism, Ayn Rand, everyone does their own thing, in which case you're on your own.
Maybe, right? What if they just change the figurehead and Alan Joyce goes on his merry way back to Ireland?
That'd be a good start.
But then they can
he's
just
Scottish, isn't he?
Scottish. I don't know what his nationality is. I just made that up.
No, I'm pretty sure he's Irish.
He's got a European accent. Put it that way. But I think he's probably actually a nationalised Australian. I don't know if he's still he's probably an Australian citizen.
He's Irish Australian businessman.
Oh, my bad. Sorry, I thought he was Scottish.
And he's been hanging on for a good.
Killed in certain places.
He's been hanging on for a good 15 years, so it's I think it's.
He's done pretty well as
he's done pretty well for himself.
Yeah.
Haven't you done well?
At the end of this week, the Qantas share price is at its lowest point in the year to date.
It also doesn't help that the voice to Parliament. Yeah, obviously that seems to be circling the drain. But it really doesn't help the voice to Parliament that they are immediately off the bat, when they announced the campaign, align themselves with a lot of major businesses like Qantas, like the AFL, like a lot, like Combank, like all of these other massive institutions that people are kind of actually a little bit sick of in the midst of this cost of living crisis. These companies that are extorting them on a daily basis. And they go, hey, we're all for the voice to Parliament. Us Qantas, whom you love. That probably doesn't help either.
If it's necessarily, I think it's more the other way around. It's probably good to be seen as a big business to be progressive, because it's a value pitch to customers, particularly for major sporting codes. And
that's why they're doing it. But like I'm saying, why the government pitched it to them, like, and it's actually backfired on the government, I think.
Well, maybe not. I don't know if people hate Qantas as much as
me,
as you. But it's definitely
there are definitely some more things. If I could afford to fly with them.
Well, that's it. I just never fly Qantas because it's too expensive. I've never, guys. I think I've been on one Qantas flight in my life. I fly Jetstar, okay, but I've never been on a domestic. Maybe once I've been on a domestic Qantas flight.
Yeah.
I've never been on an overseas Qantas flight.
Yeah, I've only been on them, I think, when, I don't know if they were doing like way pre-COVID days, like a Red E deal or something. So it's a cheap flight, and it was at a time that was convenient for me to go. But no, very rarely have I flown Qantas.
And that probably says a bit, is that it's, it's sort of cliche, is that it is, while it's for Australians, it's for the wealthy businessmen of Australia who can afford to fly it regularly.
Well, I mean, if you're flying constantly,
When I was
the points or whatever, I don't know.
When I was flying a lot for work, we would fly Qantas for whatever reason.
I assume they have good business.
I don't know, some sort of relationship. Like, I'm not sure exactly, but
the lounge.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure Peter Dutton probably has had a few Qantas flights in his time. And in life, and he's made a little announcement this week as the Voice campaign. Well, it was announced that we've got the referendum on October 14th, so that's good. We now have a date.
Got a date.
So don't go away anywhere on that day. Make sure you're at home to vote, or can you pre-vote for a referendum? I don't know how it works.
I don't know.
Surely there'll be some kind of postal ability if for the same way, like given it's compulsory, like a general election.
You think
surely they'll have to accommodate for that because, what if you're overseas? What if you...
Yeah, surely, right. Yeah. Anyway, so they announced the date, and of course the dialogue and the debate is heating up. I guess the campaigns have not officially been going, but they've kind of been going anyway.
It's the very definition of a lot of heat and not a lot of light generated. It's like the issue has not been illuminated any further than originally was, but there's a lot of people peddling furiously over it, and unfortunately it seems like at this stage, the referendum's not going to get up, as you need a majority of voters, and you also need a majority of voters in states. So at this stage, it looks like we're shit out of luck for the referendum.
It's not looking great.
It's not looking good.
But Peter Dutton has seized upon this, the momentum of the No campaign, and he said that they would commit, if they were returned to government, to hold a second referendum on constitutional recognition by itself, without a voice to Parliament, and that would be one of their policies. That was the same policy they had, by the way, from 2013
that they never did,
22, which they never did.
Yeah, that was my question. Yep, cool. George Stapos here, keeping it real times. Just curious that as they had several, I think it was 3 terms in government, and they never did anything.
I think nearly a decade.
Is there any reason to believe that this isn't just a shallow attempt to win back voters at the expense of Anthony Albanese, and that there's actually no legitimate underlying will to do anything in favor of Indigenous people, or should I just go fuck myself?
Tom Heath, keeping it real, better times. Can I posit total bullshit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, and this is a key point, and I've got a number of members in the supporting the No sort of movement in my family, and one of the things they say, and look, I'm not going to shit on people's parade who, they've got their own thoughts. I'm not going to try and change their minds.
Firing up the shit machine. Did you miss me?
I'm not going to try and change people's minds, but one of the key things they say is that they would support constitutional recognition, i.e. another chapter of the Constitution which just says Aboriginal people exist, basically. Without the voice.
Wow, brave and beautiful. In a way
that they exist, but we don't want them influencing us in any way, shape, or form.
Right, yes. but in a way that costs us nothing. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And look, brilliant. You can debate the costs and the net effects and everything else, but I think a lot of people want a symbolic change, and but they also, the other argument is that. You've just got to legislate it. Why don't we just legislate it anyway? We should just legislate it. We'll just legislate it, and
go on then.
We wouldn't have any issues.
Fucking go on then. Yeah. No one's stopping you, mate.
Which I guess kind of doesn't legislating it doesn't really achieve what the purpose of the Uluru Statement from the Heart. So, and that's what's obviously the founding document for this whole.
Yeah. I know we consulted with a bunch, with hundreds of different Aboriginal groups over the space of whatever it was, a number of years. And they told us exactly what we wanted. And what we've done is we've said, shh, quiet, sweetheart. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it. The Liberal Party's got this in hand. We're going to suggest something totally different. How's that for recognition?
Yeah, you know who knows what's best for Indigenous Australians?
This guy.
Yeah. I mean,
who has two thumbs and knows better than the Indigenous community what the Indigenous community wants? This guy.
I think very to his credit, and this is not it's not a compliment. It's just a what he's done is very clever, is that I think what he has said resonates with a lot of white people and a lot of people who are on the no campaign.
So? I think resonating with white people should be the name of Peter Dutton's debut album.
So it's a that's not a bad title, isn't it? It's a clever political move, and it wedges Labor, because if the Voice doesn't get up, Labor have already said that that's it. But then if this were introduced to the floor of Parliament, even if they were in opposition, hypothetically, it would put Labor in a tricky spot. Although I don't know if you're even allowed to do it from opposition, because you need a mandate and all this kind of crap.
Anthony Albanese going, well, what's the detail? We haven't seen any where's the detail on your proposal, Peter? Where's the detail? How's it going to happen? How much is it going to cost? What is Peter Dutton's fake voice to Parliament really going to give us? Well, not a voice to Parliament, the constitutional recognition without the constitution change. I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be very satisfying, but then they'd probably go, yeah, cool. We're cool with doing nothing. Great. All right.
Doing nothing. High five. Yeah. If you want, don't pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to what they do. They had nearly a decade in power, and they spent, I want to say like 13% of it arguing about 18C, the right to be a bigot. George Brandis said people have a right to be bigots, Like, that's what they were focused on. They were focused on their own niche special interests, lining their pockets, with sports rorts and car park rorts and, the security, setting up security in areas where there were marginal seats, CCTV cameras. What was that program called? I forget.
Oh yeah.
The night safety one.
Some pork that was put in barrels, George.
Look at what they did. They didn't prioritize Indigenous issues. They didn't put a vote together for Parliament. They had 10 fucking years to get around to something that would help Indigenous people. And you know what they did? Diddly fuck all. Okay? So this is completely disingenuous. It's not going to help Indigenous people. No. They have no intention of helping Indigenous people. It's just a way of, as Adam said, wedging Labor in order to win political points. Don't be fooled for a second into thinking that Peter Dutton gives a fuck about Indigenous people. He does not. It's divisive language, he says, the guy who's dividing the nation with his language. That it's divisive language. The language you're using? That's from a Dan Illich sketch today.
I was going to say, the Dan Illich sketch that he released this week was quite good of, the divisive, about points of divisive language. But I think it's just the tone that you're saying it in. And it's an excellent point that people say, like, you mean the voice to Parliament's going to be a group of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that are going to make suggestions to the government? It's like, say it in a different tone.
Just say it in a nice tone.
Yeah, voice to Parliament will be a group of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who will make suggestions to the government. See?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, actually that's not so scary at all.
It's
an excellent point.
That's probably an interesting point as well, is that I do think one of the things that my family keeps harping on about is they don't trust Labor, because they believe it's all sort of,
I mean, I can't blame them there in some ways.
Or a hysterical sort of, fever. They don't like how unrational everyone is, and how emotional everyone is on the issue without laying out the facts clearly.
One question: what piece of policy that Labor has put through thus far in their term of government leads you to believe that they are likely to over-deliver on any promise? What makes you think that they are capable of taking a radical turn away from what's currently happening?
What I would suggest people do, and I found was quite useful, is literally just to go to the voice.gov.au website and have a look at some of the material on there. Yes, it is a government website, but it clearly outlines what will actually happen as part of the referendum. So you can sort of get rid of the expert opinion here. You can get rid of our opinion over here. You can get rid of the bloody Sky News' opinion over there, and you can just sort of see what's actually going to be put in the referendum question. You can see what the draft chapter will be in the Constitution and make up your own mind, I guess. But take out some of the crap, just look at the facts, and it takes like 2 minutes. Just go to voice.gov.au.
If Woodside gets a voice to Parliament, so should Indigenous people.
Indeed. Now, moving overseas, there are many countries that have parliaments in the world and that are liberal democratic countries, but there are some in West Africa that love a good coup. And
they love
this
the
week,
coup?
well, the military is
they're doing them with some frequency, so they must like something about it.
So in Gabon, is that how you pronounce it? Gabon. Gabon. Gabon for Nigel.
Nobody help him.
Nobody help me. Let me go. The military overthrew their, well, this is where it gets a bit complicated, democratically elected president, which makes it the 8th military coup in West Africa since 2020. Yes.
That's a lot of coups in a couple of years. Yeah, damn.
It's a lot of coups. And it's, there's been a lot of think pieces coming out lately about sort of why they think this is happening.
It happened just after an election, right?
Correct. So Ali Bongo, who is won his third term as president last Wednesday, he won 64.25% of the vote, if we agree with the metrics that were put out. And after that happened, the military then took power. They appeared on national television, channel Gabon 24, saying they had taken power and were representing security and defence forces. The officials told the public election results were cancelled, all borders were closed until further notice, and state institutions were dissolved. So basically in Gabon, for instance, that family, like Ali Bongo, his family has had power in some way, shape or form for 56 years. So yes, right. It's democratic. They have elections, but they just keep getting voted back in.
Well, it's like how Xi Jinping keeps winning elections.
Vladimir Putin,
in their parliament, like he got 100% of the vote last time.
I think he actually got 105% of the vote. People came back from the dead to vote for him. Yeah,
some of them voted twice.
It's funny because
I just love the guy
so much.
These are democratic elections. People rock up to the ballots and they're voting.
But whether they're free and fair elections is another point entirely. Like a majority of 64
depends on the country.
64.25% is a pretty hefty majority, right? Like,
well, there's 2.3 million people in the country. 850,000 are registered to vote. So then, if you have a voter turnout of whatever it is, you're probably not getting necessarily representation across the board in terms of the political.
So you're getting 64% of the people who are
actually
taking part in the process, rather than 64% of the legally forced is the wrong word, legally bound nation to vote.
And they tried to throw a coup against him in 2019, which he sort of narrowly survived. So this is, I guess, a successful
Sorry, just the
one.
way Adam says throw a coup like it's a baby shower or something.
Yeah,
I guess
throwing a coup.
8 coups in like 36 months or like 30 months.
I mean, really, at that rate, you need a coup planner. You just need to bite the bullet and you just need to pay someone to plan it for you. I mean, you can't, there's just too many things to think about and organize when you're just going at that many coups per minute. Like, it's just, it's too many.
And at SIPOS Incorporated, your coup planner will be your best friend.
I'm starting a new business. They will handle Richard Branson, you got nothing on me, mister. Any
idiot can throw a coup. But what makes our coup better?
There we go. I knew we were sort of feeling our way around the joke and we got there in the end. That was well done.
It's funny you think about this, like in West Africa, they can throw a coup very easily, but like you go to Venezuela and they just botch any coup attempts that sort of come their way.
Or you go to Washington, D.C. and they fucking botch a coup.
Like, I was going to say Coups International is actually the Coup International Agency. I think the CIA, is the one that you would want to go to for that sort of thing. I think they already have a business plan in place. So,
but interestingly, like out of those countries, all but one of them are former French colonies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's
colonization, we meet again.
Colonization, my old friend.
Yeah.
There is a an element to potentially, because obviously the reason why a lot of this is happening, because people aren't necessarily upset that the military is taking over in a lot of these countries. Like in Niger, the military were packing out stadiums, and people seem to be there genuinely like clapping and supporting the new sort of rulers. So it's not like people seem to be, I think, it's less about, from what I was reading in Al Jazeera, is that it's less about the support for the military. It's more about, we just are sick of these family dynasties.
Yeah, sick of the corruption.
And corruption, and our lives are not getting any better. Like, growth in Africa is meant to fall by like 2 or 3% over the next year or something like that, as a continent. And yeah, I mean, people's lives, not to mention, the environmental crises that are happening in some of these countries as well. All the minerals are getting extracted, but that wealth isn't really flowing through to the people of those countries. So there's a lot. People are disenfranchised with their governments. So even though they're democratic, they're not really yielding results for the people, so to speak.
Even though they're democratic, they're likely to support a far right, not quite dictator, but a firebrand, a bomb thrower who's likely to come into the process with his populist views and really shake up the system. Some sort of giant blonde moron who might come in and start bombing hurricanes and drawing new maps with Sharpie, that sort of thing.
Indeed.
Yeah. I can't say that impulse sounds familiar to us in the West at all.
One family ruling a country for 56 years.
Bit sus.
That's a bit sus. That's British monarchy level of sus.
And I guess where the France element comes into it is that the French government has tacitly supported these companies, has tacitly supported the governments of a lot of these countries throughout the last 50 years, has supported the strongmen in Africa sort of approach, because it's within their best interest to keep those countries on side.
Well, there's
on side and giving them all these minerals.
Giving them minerals, or there's also like concerns about terrorist activity and, Islamic extremists, and making sure that there's cooperation with people on the ground. And so, there's every colonialist empire, there's an interest in maintaining, there's an interest from the West, from France, from England, from America, to maintain this kind of the backed strongman leader who's our representative, who's our man, right? Most importantly, our man on the ground, who's going to be particularly pliant to Western interests, right? Like, this is a story that we've seen over and over and over again, not just in Africa, but in Southeast Asia and South America. It's just like I say, it was colonialism all along.
The Western world fucking sticking its dick everywhere for its own benefit and fucking everything else up in the process. That's just
and so we get everything from here to the horizon, and you get this lovely bag of beads. Isn't that very nice? Look at how they jingle.
Post-colonialism is one issue, but it definitely is one that doesn't help. I don't know if there'll be any more coups. I guess we'll see. It is the thing. I don't remember what our last story was.
We could just have a good laugh at a piece of shit having another moment this week where his brain absolutely stopped. Yes, Mitch McConnell had another. He had another pause in a press conference. The man is clearly not well. Jesus Christ, let him die.
Let him die. Let him take a long, God really needed an obstructionist asshole. Just let him have him.
Yep. Yeah, it's just bananas. Like, I have zero love for Mitch McConnell and I have no sympathy for him whatsoever. But fuck, it's just bordering on abusive that they keep just trotting him out to do his job when he's clearly not well.
Should we
here's a clip of Mitch McConnell definitely not stroking out.
What are your thoughts on running for re-election in 2026?
What are my thoughts about what?
Running for re-election in 2026.
That's Did you hear the question, Senator? Running for re-election in 2026? All right, I'm sorry, you all are going to need a minute. Senator Benny. Somebody else have a question? Please speak up.
What efforts is Daniel Cameron going to have to make on the campaign trail to win Kentuckians over in November?
Senator Daniel Cameron, you have a comment on Daniel Cameron?
Well, I think his administration is going to be very close. Far and away the best candidate we could have nominated.
Like it's great, and just the thing of
I kind of feel
sure
sorry
you
for him.
speak up. Oh yeah, because the question wasn't loud enough is the issue.
Yeah, it's just the staff was making out like, Senator,
speak up.
Speak up. No. Your questions aren't loud enough. It's definitely not the fact that he's stroking out, having a cluster stroke here on the floor of Parliament. That's definitely not the issue. You're not loud enough. You got to speak up.
He did the same thing last time, like, you know, that he clenches his lips together in that like Yertle the turtle way that he has, and just like stares in a particular direction. Yeah. Like he still responds. Like she said, "Did you hear the question? The question was about blah," and he says something like, yep. But he he's clearly not firing on all cylinders. It's like
maybe KFC that time in the Hotel George, just not quite being there.
Okay.
In the room.
Do we have time to tell the story? Fuck it. Yeah, we're at 1 hour. We'll do it live. So,
oh God,
I used to.
It's not like we were talking about the fact that this man runs the country.
So we'll get back to Mitch McConnell. Okay, this is stroke number 2, mate. 3 strokes and you're out. Okay. We'll get back to Mitch in a second. So back in our halcyon days, in our early 20s, we used to. It was
mid-20s by this point, but anyway.
That's unimportant. Where we
wasn't yet irresponsible.
We used to go out and drink adult beverages from time to time. We don't do that anymore for some reason.
I drink them at home.
Well, yeah, Tom's drinking one right now. And we were out drinking. I think it was your birthday or something, Adam, and we were out celebrating. And we'd had a couple of daddy juices. And I used to run I used to be the manager for a hotel. And it was late. It was in the city, and we thought we'd get some Dirty Bird, get some KFC, and retire back to the hotel to eat said KFC.
It was cold.
It was cold. That must have been it. And maybe you're waiting for the night rider bus to get home. Was that
maybe a train? It might have been a train
or a train that wasn't coming for some time. So let's come eat the food back at the hotel. And I was complaining about some issue I was having with one of the housekeeping staff. And Adam eating chicken, but also fully passed out, started talking about how we were going to ambush the housekeeping staff. What were you
saying? My brother regales me of this a lot. And apparently what I said was, I was trying to do the math in my head. Trying to do math in my head while asleep, while talking, while sitting up.
Yeah.
How many you got on the force, I think was something I said.
Yeah, on the force of housekeepers. Yeah.
And then how many staff do you have?
We could take them, I guess. He was doing the math of how many of them were versus how many of us. I'm like, mate, they're not the Viet Cong. Calm down.
Yes, I do like that your concern was that the staff would be hostile.
I think it was. We could totally ambush them. My brother regales me is the words that I said. And then allegedly I woke up as if nothing had happened.
Yes, in the middle of a sentence like you are a Russian agent that had just been activated. It was the fucking scariest thing I'd ever seen in my life. I was genuinely concerned.
I was like, cool, what's going on?
Like a Manchurian candidate, you just woke up.
I'd gone from being woefully drunk to being somewhat conscious thereafter.
Surprisingly lucid.
Yeah. I think I may have had my drink spiked that night, potentially. That was that.
Yeah, spiked with so much alcohol.
Yeah. Anyway, but I know what it feels like to be Mitch McConnell and to sort of be half there and half not. It's a weird feeling. But to be fair, it is kind of funny that you say that, where you say Mitch McConnell, they need to let him retire. I mean, you can tell that he's being, to an extent, somewhat stage managed
shepherded
in that
by
clip.
his staff. Same with him and Dianne Feinstein. It's like, I understand that you guys are career staffers and it's going to suck for you to lose your job if someone else needs to get in there and do the job. But this person, like, forget for the fact that Mitch McConnell is a human monster. Like, he is a person and he is experiencing a medical event and he needs to stop doing his job now. You need to, you need to stop propping him up to save your job and you need to call an ambulance. This man is medically unwell and he should be having a good sit somewhere in Florida, not with a hand up his ass, someone trying to manipulate him like a ventriloquist dummy into being minority leader of the Senate. Okay? The man needs to sit. Yeah. Leave him alone.
Yeah, like if anything, just to sort of, like, don't you see how damaging this is?
It's not good for the party. It's not good for who's this good for?
Like, because then, like, I know people will be like, oh, you know, it's always the people behind the scenes that are pulling all the strings anyway. But it's like he, as Senate Minority Leader, like he has power.
Yeah,
like
real power.
This guy should, like, you know, like it's, you know, I know people are like really
he's in the line for the presidency,
elderly and things like that, but like fucking, he can't do the job anymore. Like
he's in the line for the presidency. There is a certain number of people that if they die, Mitch McConnell will be the person who is now the president and running the country. Clearly, he's not capable of doing that.
No, like it's one of those things. If he has to stop. Like, I mean, he had to stop. Why now? Why not 40 years ago? But
why not pre the Obama regime?
It's interesting. The question was, what are your thoughts on running again?
On running in 2026. And his brain went, ha.
Yeah, his brain was like, okay, I got to step in here and give him a reminder that he cannot run again in 2026.
Bro, not only am I not running in 2026, I don't know if I've got enough juice to make it till September. So,
like,
and it is August.
It's fucked. It's fucked that they're still trotting him out like this. Like, let the man die. It'll be a great day and we can all move on.
I mean, I'm sure you meant to say, Tom, that it would be a sad loss for the United States of America, and with thoughts and feelings,
thoughts and prayers, yada yada yada. Yeah, we don't wish death on anyone, and terms and conditions authorized by the Commonwealth Government.
Allegedly, just sprinkle some allegedly.
Sprinkle some alleged. This is a comedy show.
I don't wish death on him. I just won't be sad when it happens. Fine, isn't it? You can't take that from me.
No, you can have that. Speaking of being sad, we have been.
We are, and we always will be. Yep. And Unnatural Selection. Make sure you visit us at our salubrious home on the web, unnaturalshow.com. And make sure you follow us on all the bullshit social medias that have, do, or ever will exist at Unnatural Show. That's Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, and mother flipping TikTok. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads at George Tsipos.
You can follow me on Twitter at Tom D. Heath and on Threads at Tom.Heath.
Yeah, you can follow me down to the hospital because I may have just had a minor Mitch McConnell moment where I forgot the exiting line.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say we were going to be smothering him with a pillow and offering him an ounce of mercy in this cruel, cruel world.
We could do both. Por qué no los dos,
Very much so. Thanks for listening, guys. I love your faces. We'll see you next week.